So the first few, I'm going to start out with Math Lab. I want to make this, let me go back to number one here. All right, y'all, I'm going to bring my chat up so y'all can answer some of these. All right, y'all, so this first one wants to know, is this function of the graph that we got here, is this function even, odd, or neither? And remember, the way you can tell on this, good job, y'all, it is definitely even. And even functions are symmetric to the y-axis, and they touch the x-axis an even number of times. So yeah, this was symmetric to the y if I fold it over, and it actually looks like it's touching the x two times. So y'all, this is definitely an even function. All right, y'all, another picture next. All right, y'all, so on this one, is this function odd, even, or neither? Yeah, good job, this one. This one's definitely odd. Remember, this one, if you turned it upside down, would be symmetric to the origin. And it also touches one, two, three, four, five. It touches the x-axis five times, which is an odd number of times. So it's definitely going to be an odd on that one. All right, y'all, then it's going to get into moving the graphs around. So I gave y'all pictures of seven basic graphs. So this one, y equals x minus 10 squared. Since we got an exponent of 2 on this one, this is going to be the quadratic graphs or the x squared graphs. So we just got to figure out what happens when you subtract 10 from the x inside the parentheses. So remember, if you're inside the parentheses and you subtract from the x, it's actually going to move that graph to the right. And if it was being added, it would move it to the left. So this is going to move it to the right. And then we said we're starting with the x squared graph. So let's see, we want to go with A on this one. So you got to choose one of the four letters based on what it's doing. I went with A because it's moving it to the right. B would be if it went up. C would be if it went down. And D would have been if it went to the left. Now inside the box, you got to put the basic graph we started with, which was the x, and then put in the exponent of a 2. So that was the x squared graph. Now what's going to happen when you hit next? Hold on, y'all. Let me go back. Let me finish it. I didn't get my graph. So click on enlarge graph. So the x squared graph will be the U shape. Click it and then click anywhere over here on the graph. When you click on the graph, it's going to pop open a box. So since mine went 10 to the right, I'm going to do the horizontal and go over to a positive 10. And if you notice, it moved my graph, that yellow line, it moved that over to the right 10 units. So remember, vertical is your up and down, horizontal is left and right. We never do the stretching and shrinking stuff on the top of that box, okay? So we're not doing none of that. We're just doing the vertical shift, horizontal shift, and then reflect over the x-axis if we have to. All right, y'all, so you save that, then you click next. All right, number 4 is the same thing here, okay? Um, so I got to pick A, B, C, or D. Now this one has an exponent of 3. So since that's an exponent of 3, this will be the x cubed graph, okay? So that negative in front is going to reflect it over the x-axis. And we only reflect over the x-axis, nothing over the y-axis, okay? It's only the x. And this time inside the parentheses is adding 1. So remember, if you're adding 1, it's going to move you to the left. So I want one moving left and going across the x-axis. So y'all, that looks like that would be D for me. Start with the graph of f of x equals x cubed. Shift it 1 unit left and then reflect across the x-axis. All right, so then you're going to click the enlarge graph. All right, so the x cubed, the second one on the second row says x cubed tool, so click that. Click anywhere on the graph. It's going to start it in the middle. And we went 1 unit left, so take your horizontal and go left 1 unit. Whew. And then reflect it over the x-axis. So see, when I click that, it went downhill instead of going uphill. All right, so you save that and then hit next. Now, the next one, I think we just got to tell what it's doing. We don't actually got to graph this one, okay? So I got g of x equals negative x minus 4 squared plus 7. So first of all, it's saying start with h of x equals x squared. We're going to shift it blank units. So left 4, right 7, or left 7. So we're looking at that x minus 4 inside the parentheses. That's the only place where we're going to get left and right out of, remember. It's got to be in the parentheses. Justin, it said right, good job, because remember, if they're being subtracted, you're going to go right 4, so good job. Then reflect it across the, all right, what are we choosing here? X-axis, good job. And then you're going to shift it down 4, up 7, down 7. So what do y'all think on that one? And they're looking at that plus 7 at the end. All right, so it's going to go up 7, good job. And click that. So inside the parentheses, those are sort of backwards from what you think. Subtracting moves right, adding moves left. But at the very end, the vertical, up is positive, down is negative. Okay, so that pretty much is what you would think. All right, y'all, then we would hit next. All right, so looks like the first 5 of those were basically doing graphing and even and odd functions and all that fun stuff. All right, y'all, so let me write this down. V squared plus 9v plus 20. All right, so I'm going to go to my pad and we'll work this. Now, number 6 is one that you can factor. Okay? You can do the quadratic formula on this if you wish, but this one will factor. So I'm going to take it and set it equal to 0 and actually factor this one. So I'll show you how you can factor this one, and then I will work it using the quadratic formula if you need, okay? All right, so v squared will be a v and a v. Remember, I said if this last number's positive, both of these factors will have the same sign as the middle number. So since that's positive, both of these factors will be positive like the middle number. Now, what I need for this, I need factors of 20 that'll add and get 9. So what factors of 20 will add and give me a 9? So y'all, 20 only has a few ways to get it. Justin, you're perfect. You got what, 4 and 5, which is perfect. And y'all, that was the only 3 ways to multiply to get a 20. But the ones that added to 9 are like Jesslyn said, 4 and 5. So since they're both positive, it don't matter who goes where. Now, at this point, set both of them equal to 0 and solve this. And y'all, what I would do, solve this one, subtract 4 from both sides. So v is a -4, and then here subtract 5, and I get v is a -5. The solutions are always opposite in sign than the factors were, okay? So yeah, number 6 is pretty quick to factor if you want to, okay? Alrighty, so are y'all good on factoring this one, or is anyone going to try to do the quadratic formula to that one? So y'all are actually good factoring it? Alrighty. So y'all, let's go back here. We go back to Math Lab, and we would put in our, what do we get? -4, comma, -5. So you put them answers in and hit next. Now y'all, number 7, we have no choice. On number 7, the only way you're going to be able to solve this is by quadratic formula, okay? X squared plus 7x minus 3 equals 0. Now notice it wants the exact solutions, which are using the square root radicals, and then it wants the approximate answers where I'm going to use a decimals, okay? So let me get my answers first, and then I'll use the calculator to get them decimal approximations. All right, so I'm going to start out getting my exact solutions by using the quadratic formula. And y'all remember the quadratic formula was x equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So a, b, and c are the numbers in front of the variables, and then the constant term is always c. So no number here, that'd be 1x squared, 7 for b, and then c would be a -3. All right, plugging them into my formula. X equals negative times b, which is 7, plus or minus square root. B squared would be 7 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, and c, which is -3. All of that will be over 2 times a, which is 1. So the first step, y'all, just getting everything plugged in, okay? Then start simplifying what you can. Negative times a positive makes that a -7. Under the square root, 7 squared, 7 times 7 is 49. And that's always got to be positive. No matter what number you put here, when you square it, it can be a positive or a negative number. When you square it, it will become positive. Now let's see what we got over here. -4 times 1 is -4. -4 times -3 gives me a positive 12. All over 2 times 1, which is 2. All right, so now I can add this stuff under the radical. So bring down that -7 plus or minus square root. 49 and 12 is 61 all over my 2. So now y'all remember I had them perfect squares over here. Perfect squares. So 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. 7 times 7 is 49. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 9 is 81. 10 times 10 is 100. I'll just go to 100 on this. But if I'm going to simplify that square root of 61 It's got to have, now 1 don't matter because you don't change nothing with a 1. So it's got to have a 4, 9, 16. One of these factors or perfect squares would have to be a factor of 61. It don't divide by 4. 60 divided by 4 works, but not 61. It's not dividing by 9. It's not dividing by 16. It's not dividing by 25. And then everything else is starting to get too big. So it's not going to divide by 36, 49. So since it does not divide by any of these perfect squares, this would be our final answer. This is the exact answer. Now, to get my approximations on the calculator, I would do -7 plus square root of 61 divided by 2, and then I would do -7 minus square root of 61 divided by 2. So y'all let me get my calculator to see what those are going to equal. All right, so I'm going to make it look like a fraction by hitting alpha, y equals, and enter. On top, I had a -7. I'm going to do plus first. Plus, second x squared gives me the square root. Put in my 61. Now I'm going to arrow to the bottom and put in a 2. So this is going to give me to my first answer. And remember, I'm rounding in 3 decimal places. So this will be a 0.405. So since the number after the 5 is less than 5, and it was a 1, that means I don't round up, okay? All right, now let's do that again. Alpha y equals enter. I got -7 minus second x squared for the square root. Put in my 61. Arrow to the bottom. Put in my 2. Now you'll notice these are going to be the same decimals on these. So this one was a -7.405. The decimals will be the same on these. The only part different will be like the -7 in front of this one. The other one basically had a 0 in front, okay? All right, so I got my answers. Let's go to Math Lab and put these in. All right, so the exact solution. I'm going to hit the fraction down here first. So let me see what y'all are talking about. So Jasmine, on this one, they're talking about 3 decimal places. So that's after the decimal. So my third decimal place would be the not 4, not 0, but the 5. So since the 5 is my third decimal place, I'm looking at the fourth number, which is the 1. And see, the 1's too low to change that 5, okay? So the -7 in the front, that's not counted towards the decimal places since it's in front of the decimal, okay? All righty, y'all. So let me hit my fraction bar. So this one was what? -7. So -7. I'm going to use the plus or minus. And then where's the square root right there? And then put in my 61. And then on the bottom of that was a 2. All right, now the exact answers were 0.405, comma, -7.405. Okay, just so put in them 2 answers and then you'll hit next. All right, y'all, let me write this one down. This is another one where we're going to have to do the quadratic formula. F of x equals 3x squared minus 7x minus 13. Now, this one doesn't need the approximations. All I need is my exact answers using the radicals, okay? So let's see what we'll get here. All right, so technically you would set it equal to 0. and get your A, B, and C. So A is a 3 this time. B is a -7. C is a -13. All right, let's plug that into our formula. X equals negative times B, which is a -7, plus or minus. B squared will be our -7 squared minus 4 times A, which is 3, C, which is -13, all over 2 times my A, which is 3. All right, y'all, so let's see what's happening here. Negative times negative makes that a +7, plus or minus. All right, -7 squared is -7 times -7, which is a +49. And y'all, let's see what we got here. -4 times 3 is -12. -12 times -13. Oh, y'all, I think that's a positive. Um, I think that's a positive 156. Yep, Jason, you got that. Good job. All over 2 times 3, which is 6. All right, y'all, so let's add them together. So I get 7 plus or minus. All right, Jason, and add that together. 49 and your 156. 205, there you go. And then, y'all, that would be all over 6. All righty, so it looks like we're at the point now where we got to see if we can simplify that square root of 205. So remember, I'm looking at 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 481. So I would see if it would divide by any of these numbers, y'all, but I don't think that's going to divide by those. So since it does not divide by any of those numbers, that would be our final answer. All right, y'all, so I would go put that in. So let's put that in. So fraction, I had a 7 plus or minus a square root of 205. And then on bottom, we had a 6. Okay. So y'all, that's the trick on these is seeing if they simplify. If they don't, you cannot do nothing to these radicals, okay? All right, so let me go back and let y'all catch up on those real quick. All right, y'all, so let's see what's next on MATLAB. All right, so we hit next. All right, so this one, no work was needed. They're giving us the graph, and we got to tell what the x-intercepts are and the solutions. And it's where these 2 dots are. The trick is, when you write these x-intercepts, you got to use those parentheses around these numbers. So the first one on the left, that is at -3, comma, 0. So on x-intercepts, and then comma, and the next one would be parentheses. The one on the right side That's at 5. So that one would be 5, comma 0. So remember, x-intercepts have a y value of 0, okay? Now, when you do the solutions, remember we said the solutions were equal to the x values of the x-intercepts. So the solutions would be -3, comma, whoops, -3, comma, 5. So just the x values for the solutions, okay? Or if you could take that x squared minus 2x minus 15, you could factor it or quadratic formula that, and you would actually get them two answers, -3 and +5. All right, so just remember, and it even says that under the x-intercepts, right under there in parentheses, it says type an ordered pair, okay? Oh yeah, y'all, then we hit next. And this is the one with the ladder. So let me draw me a wall here. Okay, let's see what it says. Okay, so your ladder, the foot of the ladder is 9 feet from the wall. And then this is the one where the height of the ladder reaches on the wall and the length of the ladder are consecutive integers. Now, on this one, I'm going to tell you all the truth. The only difference from mine and yours is this distance right here. Okay? Mine was 9 feet from the wall. So that's the only difference y'all will have other than mine, because everybody's is consecutive integers. So consecutive integers means if the height the ladder reaches on the wall is x, then that means the length of the ladder is going to be x plus 1. So everybody will have an x here and an x plus 1 there. Everybody's going to have a right triangle. And since it's a right triangle, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared will equal c squared. Now, the only stipulation on this is that the c squared has to be the longest side here. C is always your hypotenuse. So I'm going to let this one be A and this one be B. But this one could be A and that one can be B. It don't matter on A and B. The only thing that matters is that C has to be the ladder on this one, okay? All right, so just plug in. A was 9, so that's going to be 9 squared, plus B, which is X, so that's going to be X squared, is going to equal C, which is X plus 1 squared. All right, 9 squared, 9 times 9 is 81. Can't do nothing with the X squared. But y'all on the side here, let me figure out X plus 1 squared. Now remember, X plus 1 squared means X plus 1 times X plus 1. This one you have to FOIL out, okay? All right, y'all, X times X was X squared. X times 1 was 1X. 1 times X is 1X. And then 1 times 1 is 1. You're going to add like terms and get X squared plus 2X plus 1. Everybody will have this on the right side. X squared plus 2X plus 1. The only difference at this point between my problem and y'all's is the 81. Okay? And you're going to see, since it's quadratic with the x squareds, I'm going to try to get all the x squareds on one side. But look what happens when you move the x squareds. when you subtract x squared from both sides, those x squareds cancel out. Everybody's is going to cancel out like that. So all that's going to be left is our number, 81, equals the 2x plus 1. So at this point, the only difference is the 81 might be whatever number y'all had, okay? So then we would solve this for just that x. So we don't even have the x squareds anymore. They canceled out. So to solve this, we're going to subtract 1. So y'all, that gives me a 80 equals to my 2x. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So 80 divided by 2 gives me 40 equal to my x. So that means this side over here is 40. Well, the test wants the length of the ladder. Well, the ladder is x plus 1, so that's going to be 40 plus 1. So my ladder equals 41. So don't stop at the 40, add 1 to it, and get 41 on that, okay? So let me see what that one wanted. And it just wanted us to put in our 41 on that. So you're putting in 41 and hit next. All right, so let me write this one down. F of x equals x squared minus 4x plus 3. So I think there's 2 or 3 in a row doing this, but they want the vertex, axis of symmetry, min or max, value, and then we got to graph it. Now remember, when I graph this, the vertex has to be the first point, and then I'm going to use my calculator to get the other 2 points, okay? All right, so I got my function down, so let me go start playing with this. All right, so once the vertex first, so remember you got to pick out your numbers. And then I'll use that vertex formula. So A is 1, since there's no number in front of the x squared. B is -4, and C is a 3. So remember, the vertex formula was -b over 2a, and then f of -b over 2a. So we find out what the x is, and then this means put the value back in here and get the y value, okay? So for my vertex, I'm going to get the x value. It says the x value is -b over 2a. All right, y'all, so -b over 2a will be negative times b, which is -4, over 2 times 1. So negative times negative makes that a +4. 2 times 1 is 2, and 4 divided by 2 gives me a 2. So the x value of the vertex is 2. So now I got to find f of 2. So that's going to give me the y value here. F of 2. So put a 2 in for the x. You got 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 3. All right, y'all, 2 squared is 4. Minus 4 times 2 is 8. Plus 3. 4 minus 8 is a -4. -4 plus 3 is a -1. So my vertex is 2, -1. My axis of symmetry is x equals the x value of 2. So remember, it's always x equals, you got to put in the x equals, and then it's going to be the x value. Min or max. Min or max. If A is positive, you got a minimum. If A is negative, you got a maximum. Well, A is positive here. And remember, since A is positive, I'm going to have a minimum. And the minimum value is equal to the Y value of -1. Okay, so remember, positive, it looks like a U, which gives you a minimum. If that was negative, it flips it over, and you would have had a maximum, okay? Now, when I graph it, 2, -1 will be my first point. And y'all, let me show you what I'm going to do to get my other 2 points. I'm going to go to Y equals. And I'm going to put in, want to have x squared minus 4x plus 3. Now remember, my vertex was 2, -1. So when I go to second graph for my table, oh, okay, here's my 2, -1. That's my vertex. So I'm just going to plot 1, 0 is another point I can use. 1, 0, and then on the other side, I got 3, 0. Those are easy points. Remember, you need 3 altogether, and one of them's your vertex. Now, you could have did 3, 0, 4, 3, any other 2 points, it don't matter, okay? Now, let's see what it's going to look like when we're done, when we hit graph. Notice it should be moved to the right just a little bit, and it looks like it moves down just a little bit. All right, so all of that's going in MATLAB. So the vertex, right under it says type an ordered pair. So that means parentheses. So parentheses 2, comma, -1, close your parentheses. B, find an equation for axis of symmetry. That's going to be x equals 2, because that was my x value on that, okay? All right, y'all see, said maximum or minimum. We said it had a minimum value. So you would click B, and it had a minimum value of -1, which is the Y value on that, okay? So you got to pick A or B on that. Do you got a maximum or do you got a minimum? And then y'all click to enlarge graph. All right, so let's see. Pick the U-shaped tool. Oh, y'all, this only got 2 dots on it, so I only guess I need 2 points then, right? So it tells me to do the vertex, which was 2, -1. So go right to 2 and down 1. All right, there's my 2, -1. And then I can plot any other point, so that'd be 1, 0. So let me go. There's 1, 0, click. All right, so you only needed 2 points on that, but the vertex had to be the very first one, okay? So then I would save that one. And then that looks like that's it, right? All right, y'all, let me see what's my chat saying. All right, so I'm trying to see what this is saying here. Let me pull that picture up real quick. Oh, so I'll tell you what happened on that one. It was the parentheses you're using. So let me show you. You got to use brackets around the numbers on those ones. So that must be I ain't hit that one yet, but when I hit that one, I'll show y'all what's happening, okay? So I think that's like number 13 or 14, right? All right, y'all. So this is the same thing. It's another vertex. F of x equals -x squared minus 10x minus 19. And Same thing on this one, okay? So let's go play with this one. All right, also on this one, since that's negative, A will be a -1, B will be -10, and C, -19. Now remember, since that's negative, it's flipping the graph upside down and giving me a maximum this time, okay? All right, so I'm going to play with the vertex first and get the x value, which is -b over 2a. So it's going to be negative times b, which is -10, over 2 times a, which is -1. So y'all watch here. The negative on top times the negative makes that a +10. But on bottom, you got 2 times -1, which makes that a -2. And 10 divided by -2 gives us a -5. So the vertex has an x value of -5. So the y value, we're going to find f of -5. So we're going to put -5 in for these x's. Now here's where a lot of people mess up. This negative, you got to bring this negative down. Then in parentheses, put your x, which is -5 squared minus 10 times -5 minus 19. This is not a negative times a negative. This -5 is being squared. So you really got a negative times a negative times a negative. So the best thing to do was bring this negative down right here. Bring that negative down. Figure out what -5 squared is. Well, -5 times -5 is a +25. So this negative makes it stay negative on this one. Because 3 negatives will end up as a negative, okay? Here, -10 times -5 is like a +50. And then at the end is your -19. Okay? And y'all, I'll tell you the truth. The first one and the second one, when you're doing the y values for the vertex stuff, these ones always have opposite signs. If this one's negative, this one's positive. If this would have been positive, this would have been negative, okay? All right, let's see what we get. -25 plus 50 is 25. 25 minus 19 is 6. So our vertex is going to be -5, 6, which means my axis of symmetry is going to be x equals the x value of -5. Then it wants to know min or max. Well, we said it flipped it upside down and made that a max. And the max value is equal to the y value of 6. All right, so remember, we only need apparently one more point on this. So let me go to the calculator. Go to y equals. I'm going to clear this one out. All right, y'all, we had -x squared minus 10x minus 19. All right, y'all, so let's hit graph and see what's happening. All right, so we know what it's going to look like. So let me get that other point. So second graph to get my table. Now my vertex was up here at -5, 6. So I'm just going to go to the left of it. So there's -5, 6 right here. So my other point could either be -6, 5 if I wanted that one, or I could do -4, 5. Either one don't matter. Any point on here you could do for that second point, okay? So Math Lab. First of all, vertex ordered pair has to be in parentheses. That was -5. comma, 6, close parentheses. Axis of symmetry, x equals, what was that, -5. And y'all, if you don't put that x equals there, it will mark that wrong, okay? All right, y'all, we had a maximum, so you hit maximum. And then it says the minimum or maximum value is a +6. All right, click to enlarge your graph. Choose the vertical parabola tool. My vertex is -5, 6. So go left to -5, up to 6. And then remember, any other point, I'm going to do that -6, 5, which is right there, and click it. All right, y'all, at that point, save that and do next. All right, y'all. So for this one, they're telling you about a rocket shot from a launching pad 9 feet above the ground, 128 feet per second. So all we're worried about is the equation they're giving us. So y'all, where's that equation? Right there. That's what we want. H of t equals -16 t squared plus 128 t plus 9. So what this formula is, h of t, h is for height, and t is for time. So the height can be given if we know what time we're looking at, okay? Now what they want to know is, when will it reach maximum height? So what time will it take to reach the maximum height? And then, what is its maximum height? Well, y'all, this is just another vertex formula. Once I find the vertex, t will give me the time, and then that f of t will give me the height. Okay? So the x value or the t gives you how long, and then the f of t, putting in the values here, will give me the height. So the time, that's going to be -b over 2a. So y'all, let's figure out what we got. A is -16. B for me is 128. And C is 9. All right, that's going to be negative times B, which is 128, over 2 times A, which is -16. So negative times positive is -128. Positive times negative is a -32. So y'all, let's see what we get on that. -128 over -32. See what y'all get on that. All right, y'all, let's see. When I divided that, that ended up giving me a +4. So that means it's going to take 4 seconds for my rocket to reach its maximum height. So what is the maximum height? Well, the maximum height is going to be h of 4. So at 4 seconds, I got -16 times 4 squared plus 128 times 4 plus 9. All right, y'all, let's see. 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times -16 gives me -256. Plus here is 128 times 4, which is 512, and then plus 9. All right, y'all, so let's see. Negative 256 plus 512 is 256 plus 9. So let's see. 256 plus 9 gives you 265. But y'all remember, y'all got the calculator, so y'all could have went to that calculator, um, with that graph and stuff. You could have punched in negative 16 times 4 squared plus 128 times 4 plus 9. Punch that in and got your 265. So either way, y'all, hand or calculator, it'll work. All right, y'all, so my maximum height was reached after, oh, what did my time go? 4 seconds. So that's pretty quick. And then it reached 265 feet. All right, y'all, 14 f of x equals a square root 3x plus 2. And they want me to determine the domain. We'll stay on this one. So let's do this one and then we're going to take a break, okay? So the domain on this, whatever's under this radical here, this under the radical, you're going to set 3x plus 2. It has to be greater than or equal to 0. Now they're using set builder notation on this one, okay? Which means the little parentheses and then your condition. So what you want to do is solve this for the x. So to solve this, your first move is to subtract 2. So that gives me a 3x greater than or equal to negative 2. Then divide both sides by 3. Now, since I'm dividing by a positive number, I do not reverse the inequality. I only flip it if I'm dividing by negatives. So since I'm dividing by positive, this will give me x greater than or equal. No, I can't do nothing to that, so that's going to stay a negative 2/3. So I want the one that has the greater than or equal, okay? Now, you're always going to have greater than or equal unless your x is negative. If your x is negative, that's going to cause it to flip. Um, so y'all, let's go see which one that is. So let's see. So greater than or equal to negative 2/3. Well, y'all, the only one that I can pick would be C on that one, okay? All right, y'all. So let me look at something here. All right, so this was support. I'm looking at the one that's on in my messages. 6.1 support was f of x equals square root x minus 10. So let me show y'all this real quick and then I'm going to take my break. So on this one, since it's a radical, they were wanting us to use interval notation. So you would still set x minus 10 greater than or equal to 0. So what's happening, you would solve this by adding 10. So you get your x has to be greater than or equal to a positive 10. Now, here's the thing. Since you got the equals in this, since it's got equals, we got to use brackets around our numbers. So if it was parentheses, that means you don't count to 10. But since it's got equals, we want to count to 10, so we got to put this around the numbers. Now, x is going to be greater than 10, so 10 would be the starting point, and you would have the bracket around it. And then greater than 10 means you're heading off towards positive infinity. And then infinity always has the curves around it. So when I'm looking at that, um, so look, Irma, that's only thing that really got you was the you had curvy parentheses instead of the brackets on it. Just remember when you're doing the radical stuff, you gotta have those brackets, okay? All righty, y'all. So we're going to take a break till 11:05. And then let's go back to Math Lab. All right, so what was that? That was 14. So hit next. All right, y'all. This one just wants us to graph. So let me see what they're giving me. F of x equals square root 2 plus 2x. All right, so y'all, I'm just going to go to my calculator and graph that real quick. So let me go to my calculator. I'm going to go to y equals and clear that off. So I had square root, so that'd be second x squared for your square root. And then I had 2 plus 2x. All right, y'all, so all we need to know is the graph so we can pick one of the 4 pictures. So I'm going to hit graph. And it's just a little uphill line going to the right. So let me look at their answers. And y'all, I've only got one going uphill to the right, and that's going to be D for me. C is half of a parabola looking. B is a straight line. There's no way a square root will give you a straight line like that. And then A is going the wrong direction. So you want D on that one, and then you just hit next. All right, y'all, so let's see what y'all think on this. I want to make this a lot larger for you. So we're going to state where it's increasing, decreasing, and constant. So the first thing is increasing. A, B, C, or D. Now we'll say this. Increasing and decreasing and constant, never use brackets. They're only going to use parentheses. So A and B will not be the answers because they're using brackets, okay? So that means what are we going with? So D, because remember, it is the X values is what you're looking at. So if you look at it, that last section going uphill starts at the X value of 4 and it goes uphill as the X's head towards infinity. So we don't care about the Y values, only the X values. So then y'all tell me, where is it constant, A, B, C, or D? And you are saying D? Yeah, because it starts going flat at the X value of -4 on the left side, and then it goes horizontal until it gets to the X value of a +4. Y'all are throwing those curveballs within brackets, but on these intervals of increasing, decreasing, and constant, I can't say it enough. Do not pick the brackets, okay? All right, it's decreasing on the left side. Although that arrow's pointing left, that just means that the graph goes on forever that way, okay? So reading it left to right, it's coming in from where, and it stops going downhill where? A, B, C, or D. And I will say, it's coming in from negative infinity on that left side. So it looks like y'all are saying B. Perfect. It's going from negative infinity on the x's until you get to -4. It quits going downhill and then it starts going horizontal. All right, y'all. So that's it on that. And then you hit next. It'll be another one like that. So this one has 4 answers over here. It's got a relative maximum because that's the dot on the y-axis. And then it's got a minimum. That's the little dotted valley there. So let's see. There's no way it can be B because B says there's not a maximum. And then there's no way it can be C because C said there's not a minimum. So it's got to be A or D. So let's see. Let's put that maximum. We got a maximum of 1 at the x value of 0. So which one says that? Only one that's got that is A, right? A has a maximum of 1 at x equals 0. So then that means the minimum must be -3 at x equals 2. Well, if I go over here where x equals 2 and go down, that dot is at -3 on the y value. So y'all, this has got to be A. It can't be B because it said no maximum. It can't be C because that said no minimum. And then D has them backwards. It's got the maximum of -3 at 2, but that's the minimum. So it's got them backwards on that one, okay? So just be careful. They're switching up them max and mins on that one. All right, y'all, so let me write this one down. This is what, 18? And they're giving me g of x equals x plus 6 for any x's less than or equal to 1. It equals 5 minus x for any x's greater than 1. They want me to find g of -7, g of 1, and then g of a +7. So we're going to get 3 numbers on this, okay? They don't care what equation you're using. They want the actual answers when you plug the numbers in, okay? All right, y'all. So for g of -7, would I use the first equation, x plus 6, or would I use the second equation, 5 minus x? So basically, is -7 less than or equal to 1? Or is -7 greater than 1? Yeah, I would use the first equation because -7 is less than 1. So that means take the x plus 6. In place of that x, you're going to put that -7. So that's going to give you -7 plus 6, which is -1. So -1 is the answer we want for that one. All right, y'all, g of 1. G of 1. Would you use the first equation or the second equation? Is 1 less than or equal to 1? Or is 1 greater than 1? All right, so you are saying first equation again. So that's x plus 6. In place of the x, I'm going to put a 1. So that's going to equal 1 plus 6, which looks like 7. All right, then we got to find g of 7. So for g of 7, would you use the first equation or the second? Oh, y'all got a 2 there for second equation. Good job. That would be 5 minus x, because 7 is bigger than 1. All right, in place of the x, you're going to put that 7. So I get 5 minus 7, which is a -2. So it just wanted those 3 answers for this one, okay? So go back and put in -1 for Jibs, -7. Put in a +7 for that answer. And then this one gave me a -2. Okay, so it just wanted the three answers. All righty, y'all. So for 19, they're giving me f of x equals -8x plus 5. Now they're giving you the difference quotient, f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. So this was the stuff from yesterday. So let me work these out and show you how I would do those. And they'll usually give you the difference quotient. So this is the f of x. They're giving us that. What we got to find is what f of x plus h, what is that equal to? Once we find that, we'll plug that in minus the f of x stuff, and that's always over h. And then it's just simplifying that, okay? So what you got to do is find f of x plus h. And to do that, you're just going to put an x plus h in for that x. So you're going to have -8 times x plus h plus 5. So you're just replacing the x with this, okay? Now, you're going to distribute that 8. So -8 times x is a -8x. -8 times h is a -8h. And then you got a plus 5. You can't go no further with that. So this right here is f of x plus h. We got f of x right here, and then we're going to plug them into the formula. Now, my first step, when I plug them in, I put them in parentheses. So here's my f of x plus h minus f of x, which is -8x plus 5. All of that is over h. And it's always h in the bottom of the formula, okay? So technically, your next step is to drop your parentheses and distribute this negative through the second one. So dropping parentheses, you'll have -8x minus 8h plus 5. The first one always stays the same. What's changing is the second one. Negative times negative makes that a +8x. Negative times positive makes that a -5. All of that is over h. So what happens on these, everything up here that does not have an h in it like this is going to cancel. See, this -8x will cancel with a +8x. And then this +5 cancels with that -5. So what's left is a -8h over h. And at that point, you would simplify by canceling the h's. So these h's cancel, leaving my final answer as a -8. So on number 19, y'all, you're going to come in and put -8. Now that was going to be a little easier than number 20 here. Um, so 20, let me get that f of x. This was f of x equals 4x squared plus 4x plus 5. All right, they're still giving you the formula, f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. So this will be a little different because we got that x squared in it, okay? So let's go plug that in. So once again, the first thing I'm going to do is figure out f of x plus h. So put an x plus h here and an x plus h here for both of the x's, okay? So I got 4 times x plus h squared plus 4 times x plus h plus 5. All right, so the first thing I would do is figure out what x plus h squared is. Now, work this out on that video I sent y'all. But x plus h squared equals x squared plus 2hx plus h squared. So if you multiplied x plus h times x plus h, this is what you would get. So you're going to replace this part with that. So you're going to have 4 times x squared plus 2hx plus h squared. And I'm bringing everything else down. 4 times x plus h plus 5. So all I did on that step was figure this part out right here, okay? Next, I'm going to distribute the 4 and the 4 here. So 4 times x squared is 4x squared. 4 times 2hx is 8hx. 4 times h squared is 4h squared. Do that here. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times h is 4h. And then at the end is a plus 5. Now, what's sort of sad about this one? There's no like terms. So this whole thing right here is the f of x plus h. So let's plug them in. F of x plus h, 4x squared, plus 8hx, plus 4h squared, plus 4x, plus 4h, plus 5, minus f of x, which is 4x squared, plus 4x, plus 5. All of that is over h. So y'all, let me do like I did a while ago. I'm going to distribute that negative. So that negative is going to make all these positives into negatives, okay? So dropping the 4 first parentheses, nothing changes. It seems like these problems are long because there's nothing you can do to add these like terms together up here, okay? All right here, minus 4x squared, minus 4x, minus that 5, all over h. So, remember, once again, the stuff that don't have h's was going to cancel. So 4x squared, negative 4x squared, 4x, negative 4x, and then positive 5, negative 5. At this point, the things with the h's is all that's left. So I got an 8hx plus 4h squared plus 4h all over h. And y'all, the last step is to divide every one of these tops by h. So here, the h is going to cancel, so you're left with an 8x. Here, you had 2 h's, so one of these is going to cancel, leaving you 1h on the top. And then here, this h is going to cancel, leaving a 4. So you're dividing everybody on top by that h. So if it only had 1h, They're canceling out like these two did, okay? This one, if you had two H's, one of them's going to cancel, leaving one H. And y'all, that right there is the final answer. So you just got to remember on this problem, when you got things being added or subtracted on top of a fraction, they're all divided by that denominator, okay? All right, y'all, so we would go put that in now. So we had 8x plus 4h plus 4. How do y'all, then we would what? You have to submit it and be done with it, okay? All right, y'all. So questions over that study guide. All right, so I'll add y'all's bonuses for test one. I'll start adding on them. If I haven't added your bonus yet, I'll start adding them today and tomorrow for sure. I'll send out another bonus for test two sometime today. I'll send out a bonus for test two for y'all. Um, and then tomorrow we will start test three material, okay? So, well, we're about halfway through this course. Um, all right, let me stop my recording.